The second lesson from Scripture, which is put on our lectionary by scholars and theologians who sift through Scripture to try to determine what are just the right passages for us to include in worship on each Sunday of the year. Today being Christ the King Sunday, we heard first from the prophet Jeremiah's prophecies, now from the Gospel of Luke. I'm going to read to you from a translation that is not identical to the one that's in your Pew Bible, but it might be interesting for you to follow along in the Pew Bibles for Luke 23, beginning at verse 33, just so you see what words are different. It's not that the meaning is any different, it's just that some words in one translation the translator can consider to be more accurate or more forceful as far as the meaning goes. This is how Eugene Peterson, a Presbyterian scholar and pastor, translated this passage from Luke 23. When they got to the place called Skull Hill, they crucified him, Jesus, along with the criminals, one criminal on his right, the other on his left. Jesus prayed, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing." Dividing up his clothes, they threw dice for them. The people stood there staring at Jesus, and the ringleaders made faces, taunting. "He saved others, let him save himself. The Messiah of God. Ha! The chosen. Ha!" The soldiers also came up and poked fun at him, making a game of it. They toasted him with sour wine. "Oh, so you're the king of the Jews. Save yourself." Printed over him was a sign. "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals hanging alongside cursed him. "Some Messiah you are. Save yourself. Save us." But the other one made him shut up. "Have you no fear of God? You're getting the same as him. We deserve this, but not him. He did nothing to deserve this." And then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you enter your kingdom." And Jesus said, "Don't worry, I will. Today you will join me in paradise." There actually is another reading on the lectionary to be included in this service today. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will read part. It's a passage from the Apostle Paul's letter to the Colossians. And in it, just in part, Paul wrote, "We pray that you'll live well for the Master, making him proud of you as you work hard in his orchard. As you learn more and more how God works, you will learn how to do your work. We pray that you'll have the strength to stick it out over the long haul, not the grim strength of gritting your teeth, but the glory strength God gives. God rescued us from dead-end alleys and dark dungeons. He set us up in the kingdom of the Son he loves so much. The Son, who got us out of the pit we're in, got rid of the sins we were doomed to keep repeating. We look at this Son, and we see the God who cannot be seen." I read that passage from Luke's Gospel about what happened at Skull Hill. And I wonder to myself, where does this guy come off making some kind of request, any kind, to say nothing of a request to be in paradise with Jesus that day? And what is this kingdom? He's on Skull Hill. He's one of 3 people who are nailed to crosses, being executed. What kingdom is he talking about? Does he realize that the three of them on those crosses are up there precisely so that the Roman government can demonstrate to these rabble-rousing Jewish people that this is what happens when you are in conflict with the authority and the power of the Romans? And yet, he's talking to Jesus about a kingdom. How in the world did he even know Jesus? What kingdom? What kingdom could he possibly have perceived as he hung there on the cross, looking at Jesus, and in fact, defending Jesus to the other criminals? There have, you can guess, there have been all kinds of rationalizations and explanations about how this criminal being killed on a cross could have come up with this kind of request, this kind of question. How did it happen? And did he know Jesus? How would he know Jesus? Some are better explanations than others, and none of them claim to in fact be the truth, but it's possible. Explanations like, well, maybe this criminal was also from Nazareth. Maybe he was Jesus' age. Could be. Maybe they grew up together in Nazareth. Maybe they played in the dust on the streets there. Maybe that's how this criminal knew who Jesus was. And then as they grew up, he went on to a life of crime. And then as Jesus grew up, he went on to a life of working out who the Messiah is and what he does. Maybe, that's a possible explanation. Or it may be that these two, Jesus and this criminal, never knew each other before until the very day they were arrested. And maybe when Jesus got tossed into jail on the night of his arrest, he also got put into jail with this guy, this common thief. And maybe they just got talking and one thing led to another. Maybe. It's as good an explanation as any. But the truth is, there isn't any clear, absolutely factual, and simple explanation for how this guy knew Jesus, nor for his perception of a kingdom being involved. Paul wrote, "We look at the Son and see the God who cannot be seen." And somehow, this crook was able to perceive that very thing in Jesus, the God we worship. How can that be? Over this last week, the whole Thanksgiving week, Leanne and I had the opportunity to travel off to the wilds of northern Philadelphia, or north of Philadelphia, in order to see the Conover branch that lives there. And in the course of our visit, my daughter, her husband had to work, somebody has to, but my daughter went with us and with our grandsons to the movies one day. And we saw the new movie entitled Wonder. It's a story of a 10-year-old kid who was born with facial deformity. And in spite of surgery after surgery to correct it and to make him look better, there's no changing the fact. He's a little kid with facial deformity. And Augie is his name. And at the point when the movie picks up, Augie, 10 years old, has been homeschooled all his life, which, it becomes clear in the movie, he has also been shielded from the world and from other kids as he's been growing up. And now there is a transition. Dad decides it's time to go into the real world and to be sent to a regular school with other regular students, which is exactly what happened. And I can tell you in the movie, the transition from one shielded life into being out there with the rest of us is a very, very bumpy transition indeed. It's bumpy for Augie, of course, but it's also bumpy for his parents. It's also bumpy for his older sister. It's also terribly bumpy for the other students in this school who have never seen anyone who looks quite like Augie and who have all these, where did they get them? Prejudices about what others should look like. And because this other looks different, poor Augie is the butt of jokes, very hurtful comments. Well, you can guess how it would go. At one point in the movie, the principal, the director of the school, is having a meeting with some parents of another kid who's in Augie's class, that other kid having been one of the ones that made fun and made terrible comments. And the director is trying to explain to the parents Augie's situation. And he finally says to them, you need to understand, it's as if Augie is saying to you, to all of us, something like, I can't change the way I look, but maybe you need to change the way you see. I think that's exactly what the Apostle Paul was getting at when he wrote to the Colossians. And I think he was also making that comment for Christians in the future, people like us. No matter what we think God ought to look like, and we all have these images in our heads somewhere, no matter what we think God ought to do when we're in charge, no matter how we think God ought to act and treat others, those are all our prejudices and all our favorite desires for who God ought to be. And yet, they are not the reality of our God. It is only through Christ that we can catch a glimpse of God, who is otherwise not to be seen, not visible. I think that we're blinded by our own assumptions and our own favorite thoughts about what God looks like and what God does, or at least ought to be doing. I think that we need to change the way we see, instead of always grinding on our favorite grindstone of what we would like to see in God or in others. These days, we find ourselves living in a culture of fake news and alternative facts, a culture of disingenuousness and just plain lying, and it's all punctuated by the demise of civility. That's the world we live in now. It is not God's world. But apparently, we don't see the God who created the world, that is the coming kingdom. Except, there are moments, if we are willing to be open ourselves, to change the way we see, there are moments in life when we glimpse the coming kingdom and the God who is bringing that kingdom. If we are willing to change the way we see. Sometimes those times in life seem ridiculous, so ordinary, so funny in some ways, that we miss them. And yet, I remember such a time. It was the day after Thanksgiving. No school, of course. Most people back to work. A great day for kids. Go where I was. Go with your friends. Do whatever you wanted. Within very strict bounds, of course. Alfie, who was 11 years old, and I was 12 in those days, We were outside Alfie's house. It was 100 yards across the field over there, and we were kicking and passing a football around. Not too far from Mr. Grover's barn over there. The barn wall where there was a 3-foot by 3-foot glass window where in harvest time the migrants worked. They were in that barn sorting potatoes, which even if it was a cool day outside, was a terribly hot and dusty job. And they'd open that 3-foot window so that they could get some circulation in. And you know where this is going. I know you do. I kicked the football. It went flying over in the direction of the window. It hit the not very strong window frame in such a way that it bounced back out in the field away from the barn, cut the glass, the 6 little panes of glass that were in it, all 6 shattered into thousands of pieces and landed inside somewhere in the barn on the floor. Well, by the time I realized what had happened, I saw Alfie had already picked up the football and was running. So I was running too, just like that. We weren't going to get caught. Except Alfie's 15-year-old brother, who was considerably bigger than either of us, and evidently faster, had watched the whole thing from Alfie's house over there, the back porch. And he was on us, it seemed like in an instant. Had me by the throat. "You are not running away," he said to me. "You need to go tell Mr. Grover, the barn owner, what you just did. Own up to it." So since that wasn't just a suggestion or a question, wouldn't you like to do this, that's exactly what I did. And Alfie went along behind with me. That whole experience left an indelible impression on me. Can you tell? It has been decades since it occurred, and here I am telling you about it. It left an indelible impression because I learned a whole lot about my life, my values, but more to the point, about the kingdom of God. Even though I wound up getting off the hook, I didn't have to pay for the window. That would have made an impression too, just by itself. But more than that, there was more involved. I discovered my parents never said a word to me about this. Years later, when curiosity finally killed me, I raised the subject and said, "How come you never told me what Mr. Grover, blah, blah, blah?" And they looked at me dumbfounded and said, "First time we've ever heard that story." That was easily 20 years after it occurred. Mr. Grover never told my parents a thing about what happened to his barn window. Never asked them to pay a dime to replace it either. From that experience, I learned from Melly Tyndall, who virtually dragged me over to Grover's door that day, and to own up to what I did. I learned from him that confessing can be healing. Owning up to your wrongdoing is good for the soul. And of course, that's exactly a description of the kingdom of God and the life God calls us to live. Confession is good for the soul. I learned from Mr. Grover that an awful lot of the stupid, dumb, foolish, wrong decisions that we make can lead, almost inevitably, do lead to really, really bad consequences. Breaking a window isn't really, really bad, but if I hadn't learned that lesson early, who knows, I might be that criminal. I don't know. It's healing and it's wise to take the teaching about the kingdom to heart. You know, that day when I owned up to breaking Mr. Grover's window, what do you think the first thing he said to me was? I have told you boys 100 times not to play close to the barn where you might break the window. And it occurs to me that that must be exactly what God says in the realms of heaven. Every time one of us does something that we have been taught through Scripture, through pastors, through friends, don't do it. And we do it anyway. I have told you 100 times. How it must grieve God when we just willy-nilly do what we want to do instead of paying any attention to God's ways. I learned from Mr. Grover what forgiveness and grace feel like and look like. I learned from him about mutual respect through that experience. I learned about caring for someone else's property through that experience. I learned far deeper than any of that. I learned about caring for another person through that experience. Because we are all in this world together. And the goal is not to divide and to make us enemies of one another, but to recognize that we share and need to uphold and support one another. I learned all that from Mr. Grover that day. And I never forgot it. Down the years in time, Mr. Grover, who did in fact pay for the glass and put the window back together again and never talked about it to anybody but me, I learned as our relationship grew a profound respect for this man. And also I learned I had a pretty good friend because I broke his window. And somehow the kingdom of God is like that. I couldn't have seen that except I had had that experience with him. I learned that others matter at least as much and maybe even more than my own self-interest matters. That's what I learned. Such things, of course, are what Jesus, what Christ the King taught in his words, and more to the point, in his life, the way he lived. That's how we are called to live as disciples. It is, I hope, what we celebrate and what we remember on this Christ the King Sunday. Not just to honor and celebrate the Christ back there, but because the Christ is in here, we get a glimpse of the God we worship and the kingdom that we're called into. And we get a glimpse of what our work is as his disciples. Paul said, we look at the Son and see the God who cannot be seen. Maybe we need to change the way we see in this world. And maybe our job in an overall mission statement as disciples is precisely we need to help others change the way they see. May God's kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven.